Welcome to the first lesson of the beginner's pathway to Kung Fu. Today we're going to start with stances and alignment, which is the fundamental building blocks of all Kung Fu. So the first thing that we want to work on is your 9 gates, and we're going to use upper horse stance to teach us that. So to get an upper horse stance, you just want to stand slightly wider than shoulder width apart. So every stance has steps that you want to take, but really, they are personal to you. I'm not going to tell you that if you turn your feet out and here and that's your stance and you have to stay there. I want you just to find yourself. The easiest way to do that is just to sidestep side to side. Then you turn your toes slightly in. So they're your first 2 gates. Toes turn slightly in. Then we bend and soften our knees, and we don't let our knees come in. So this is upper horse stance. Imagine there's a horse between your legs. So you turn your knees out. When you're turning them out, you should feel your abductors pulling. There wants to be a bit of activity in the leg. The next one is you just roll your hips. So you're basically closing off your butthole. We're not going to go into too much of the meridians or anything in this, but just initially, you're lifting your hips and closing off your butt. So that's the first 2 gates is our ankles. Next 2 gates is our knees, then hips. Then we come back and we just draw our shoulders back, and then finally our head. So these are the 9 gates. When you're in this stance, you want your alignment to be a nice flat back. You're not just standing, you're active with it, but again, you're not tense either, so you should have a bit of movement within the stance. When I'm here, I think of like someone's put a brush shaft down through the center of my head, the crown chakra, right down through and out the bottom, and that's where my alignment is. I can rotate on that from here. I can rotate from my shoulders, and I still have freedom to move, but the stance is engaged. So this is your upper horse stance. This is the stance that all the Qigong that I teach, all of the forms that I teach, they all have a variation of upper horse stance. It's also a nice position to stand in if you want to do stand-in meditation. With your arms, you just let them loose. So just to go over that again, you just shake out your stance. Shoulder width apart. First 2 gates, turn your toes in. Second 2 gates, knees out. The knees sort of track the toes. Next 2 gates, you pull your hips forward. Next 2, roll the shoulders back, straighten your spine, and then finally just bring your head up. You're not trying to pull the head back, you're just trying to keep it square. So this is our first stance, upper horse stance. From your upper horse stance, we're going to move into walking stance. So there's a few ways to get into this, but I'll start off with the most basic. So you open up your toe, which we will call opening the gate. Then you step heel to toe, turn your toe in, and then sink in your stance. Your knees, you're still doing the 9 gates, so your knees are still turned out. Hips are still forward, shoulders back, body is square. So this is your walking stance. You start off shoulder width apart, open your toe, step heel to toe, turn the toe in. This is walking stance. I'll do it side on just so that you can see. So when we're square, we open the toe, heel to toe here. So what you want to do is when you're stepping forward, you're keeping the shoulder width apart distance. You don't want to tightrope walk. You don't want to step in here because you're going to be unstable. You go from here, open the toe, heel to toe. If we drew a line from our heel to our toe, they would be pretty close. We're not going to lock in and make sure that we're always exactly the right distance. But when we step, we want to make sure we're taking a short step, so roughly the length of your foot, and then keep the 9 gates. So I don't want my hips to fall out or my shoulders to roll. Shoulders back, hips rolled forward. Knees are still torqued out. They're still, the stance is still active. Like with my feet, I'm gripping the floor, and I'm sort of thinking like I'm hamstring curling. I'm trying to rip the ground up into my stance, but it's still loose. I'm not locked in it. So there's a couple different ways to practice your walking stance. Open heel to toe, open heel to toe. You'll notice as I'm stepping, even when I go back, my head, I'm not bobbing up and down. I like to think like a roof. The roof has come down on top of my head, and I step back and I'm here. So my stance is just traveling straight forward and back. I'm not bobbing up and down. So if you think if you're trying to generate power, you're not going to generate power up here. The more sunk and connected to the ground, the more you can do your body connection, then you can generate a lot more power. So the other ways that I like to practice this step is I do a knee touch and a step. So I open the toe, I shift my weight, I bring my foot up, touch my knee, step, and back down. So I'm shifting the weight and then stepping, and same when I go backwards. So when I go back, I touch, I step, you go toe to heel and then close. So when you go up, you go toe to heel and then close. So that'll be used for like a sweep and avoiding a kick. You'll see it in a lot of different martial arts, but for now we're just trying to do stability, balance, and posture. So when we're here, the other way that I like to do it is a sweep. So I travel here. So when I go here, I open my toe and I draw like a C shape, open the toe, so I'm here and then an opposite C. So, and same when I go back. So I can sweep that off the ground or I can keep it on the ground. Doesn't really matter for now, but the same things apply. I'm not bobbing and I'm trying to keep my stance. So once you've done those, you can practice those a couple of different ways. I like just to mix it up. Maybe I'll do a sweep, maybe I'll come back, and maybe I'll just step back. Once you get used to just practicing them, just not trying to structure it. You've already made your structure. Your 9 gates are your structure of your training. You're training the 9 gates, the alignment and awareness. So then you can just play with your stance and shift it about that way. The next stance that I want to do is a bow and arrow stance. Bow and arrow stance is basically a long version of your walking stance. So a lot of people would know it as a lunge, but we're getting into it the same way. We're from our upper horse stance. We're in our upper horse stance. We open and we step forward. So even though this isn't long, this is still a bow and arrow stance. This is also a bow and arrow stance here. And this is a bow and arrow stance as well. The further forward I get with a stance, the wider I'll get. If I'm only going a short stance, I'll go here. But if I go long and try to keep just shoulder width apart, then my stability is off. So as I go long, I go wide. So we go wide because we want to be able to shift back and forward. And like in the Tai Chi that I teach, we do a lot of shifting back and forward in the bow and arrow stance. And the same thing for the other side. You just step out. Your foot is turned. Your body's active. My leg isn't locked out. It's bent slightly as well. And then my knee is not in. It's tracing over the foot as well. So that is your bow and arrow stance. The next stance we want to talk about is the low horse stance. So this is the stance that you see in all Kung Fu movies. And basically in every martial art, there's a version of low horse stance. So upper horse stance, we've done this, the 9 gates were here. The lower horse stance is pretty much double shoulder width apart, roughly. Point your toes out, not way out, but maybe about 45 degrees. And then when we squat down, we bend our knees out over our toes. So we're going here. So this is a version of lower horse stance. This is also a version of lower horse stance. It just depends on what you're comfortable with. So there's a couple different ways to get into it. One is just literally step. Find your posture where you're comfortable and then drop down. You're still thinking about your gates. So I'm not falling forward with it. Still rolling my hips, still pressing out my knees, still open toes, shoulders back, and I'm here. Or what you can do is, I know I said earlier I don't like doing this for the upper horse stance, but this is a good way to train the lower horse stance. So what you're going to do is you open, 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 open. That's 5, so your 5-step horse stance. Then you can practice here. Once you're comfortable there, you would open again, and that's your 7-step horse stance. And same thing, you're just dropping down. So whichever one you are more, and then you can walk back in. The more you focus on the lower horse stance, the easier all the other stances become. So once you have all your stances, you want to be able to play with them and just build a bit of strength within them. The upper horse stance is the stance you're going to use the most. So here's a little technique that you can use to help you with your awareness and alignment within the stance. So we're going to do like a side-to-side weight shift, but trying to keep the 9 gates as best as possible. So first of all, you open your toe as if you're going to step forward. You shift your weight, come off your toe, lift up, keeping the hips rolled, touch, and then you place heel to toe, and then fix your stance. Then you open, keeping your hips, shift your weight. As the higher I lift my knee, the more I have to curl because I'm keeping my hip. And then I shift and square back up again. Even when I open my toe, even whenever I'm here, I'm not curling down. I'm lifting and I'm curling my hips. My shoulders are still back. Step and then back. That's a little technique that you can practice in between stances. But not only that, you can do this whenever you're shopping. If you're standing in a queue, you can shift your weight. You don't have to lift it high. And then step center. So I do this all the time if I'm stuck in a queue. Rather than just standing and leaning and not being in alignment or awareness and creating imbalances in the body, I relax my stance and I shift my weight. And I can do it this way and talk to people and they wouldn't really notice, and then I shift back. I'm trying not to sway too much when I'm doing it, but for now it doesn't really matter. But you can just shift your weight and your leg can go wherever you want it to go, and then you control, but everything else is staying. The 9 gates are still staying. Practice these stances until you feel stable and that they feel natural to you. The next lesson, we're going to add in some breathing and energy awareness to the movement.